In the 1930s, the renowned Sanatorium do Seto burned to the ground. The property had a storied, though troubled past. This wasn't even the first time the place had burned down. But this time, the rubble would be left to decay, and nothing was built on the land again. It was on this last day, the Feast of St. Michael, that two unexpected guests arrived, in the form of Edward Carnby and Emily Hartwood. Emily was calling to inquire on her uncle's current treatment, while Edward, a private eye, had been hired to be a second pair of eyes and protection should it come to that. However, upon exploring the Deserto, they discovered that reality within the premises was more malleable than one might expect, and they soon found themselves separated by more than mere walls. Within these pockets of broken space and misaligned time, they encountered many unexplainable events and horrifying creatures, which they thankfully recorded throughout their investigation. The first recorded entity involved a vine-choked corpse and became a commonly encountered entity, likely birthed from cadavers dumped in the virulent swamps surrounding the manor. They share many similarities with the biohazardous creatures birthed within Umbrella's underground labs in Raccoon City. However, their lack of a mouth rules out hunger for their hostile nature, and it may be that the corpse itself is not alive, but rather the vines themselves. They charge their foes to close short distances and flail wildly with their sturdy limbs. As they are more plant than animal, they can tolerate a surprising amount of weapons fire, and melee is the key to defending against these creatures, as once the entwined corpse is destroyed, they quickly fall apart. They are also unsurprisingly susceptible to fire. It is said that happy is the tomb where no wizard has lain, lest things learn to walk that ought to crawl. The ghoul might best reflect this adage. The shambling tomb horrors are constructed of multiple corpses, suffused together by writhing masses of flesh-eating maggots that these horrors can expel at their targets. They're surprisingly agile for being half-decayed, often charging from a distance and slamming into their foes, otherwise pummeling them with rotted limbs or even attempting to consume them whole. If left to fester too long, these maggots grow to an enormous size and can thrash this engorged appendage with immense force. Because of their undead nature, they can take a surprising amount of punishment. Melee is still an option, but their extensive reach can make it an especially unsafe one, and a shotgun is recommended. The following entry details a wholly unique swamp creature. With two large beetle-like mandibles and a pair of clawed forearms, they are able to dig through loose earth and mud, tunneling with ease, similar to the famous graboids of Perfection, Nevada. They use their powerful tail to propel themselves out of the earth with surprising speed, launching at their targets. Because of their peculiar biology, their movement above ground is slow and clumsy. However, they have adapted to this, developing the ability to expel their stomach bile, effectively slowing their prey. They are extremely vulnerable to fire, which can be used to force them above ground, and a well-aimed Molotov will usually soften them up enough for a single bullet to finish them off. The insectoid temple guardians inhabit the tomb of the Black Pharaoh, protecting the ruins from thieves and interlopers. These agile flyers dart through the air, biting their foes with a large pair of mandibles and slicing with their chitinous limbs. Their size and speed make for a difficult target to shoot and nigh impossible to swat, though that's not to say it can't be done. While a pistol is suggested, a machine gun is preferable, if when missing isn't an option. Another, more deadly insect was recorded, though left unnamed. First encountered in the sewers and later on a steamboat. These deceivingly dangerous crawlers are likely the mutated result of ticks or lice that have feasted on the infected blood of the horrors roaming the swamp. Their 6 appendages allow them to crawl on any surface, jumping at unaware targets to grapple their face in an attempt to feed. Their head is a mass of stubby feelers with an incredibly powerful bite that likely possesses a rapid-acting paralytic or nerve agent, as these critters can take down a seemingly healthy human in one quick bite, Their rigid exoskeleton offers a strong defense, making them difficult to penetrate with small arms fire, and spotting these bugs is out of the question. It's recommended to blast these blights with both barrels if encountered, then reload and make sure the job is done. While the mound beast was written off by both investigators, Emily recorded an especially vivid encounter wherein she found herself being hunted by it through the trenches of the First World War. While the mound beast is a foreboding monstrosity and is seemingly immune to conventional firearms, it's also quite, dull. While one would think it to have a keen sense of smell, that doesn't seem to be the case, and a slight bend in the knees appears to be enough to elude this creature entirely. If somehow this hulking horror does detect you though, well, run. The Dark Man, also known as the Black Pharaoh, is mentioned profusely throughout both Edward and Emily's notes, and is even alluded to being one of the many masks of Nyarlathotep, dread messenger of the outer gods. This omnipresent figure is able to influence the minds of others, bending them to his will in such a way that even being in his presence is enough to poison the mind and sway it, even into self-destruction. The Dark Man was worshipped by the Egyptians through fear and supplication, and was so reviled that upon his death, his temple was buried in the sands, and he was stripped from the records. Now he beckons those hopeless souls in dire need, forging pacts and bargaining for their souls. Totally unfazed by weapons of any kind, if encountered, there are only two options: flee or submit entirely. Jacob von Ostart was an explorer who dug too deep into Earth's mysteries and was irreversibly changed by the Dark Man. This poor soul guarded an ancient Hyperborean stellarium, a gateway to the stars, and possibly other worlds. He initially appeared as a slightly malformed man, but eventually his body began to mutate and extend into an elongated mass of mutilated human tissues, similar to the transformation process documented on the USG Ishimura and recorded by Isaac Clarke. Though Ostart's transformation was very much supernatural rather than biological. During the first encounter, Ostart would use speed and cunning to disappear and strike unseen from behind the temple ruins, but the second encounter was far more blunt and vicious. The transformed horror would sprint at its target, thrashing wildly with his elongated arms, acting as a powerful whip to knock foes down. Eventually, the cursed revenant was put down after being weakened with flares and machine gun fire, and finally stabbed through the eye with a ritual dagger. Incredibly, the final entries, if not complete madness, detail an encounter with the fecund mother, Shub-Niggurath, the Black Goat of the Woods. This ancient goddess is written off in such eldritch tomes as De Vermis Mysteries and the dreaded Necronomicon. The vile goddess was awoken from within an ancient tree after being summoned through ritual, though thankfully it was interrupted before she could claim her sacrifice. Standing roughly 10 meters high atop 3 hooved legs, its large maw contains 3 sets of chittering, disturbingly humanoid teeth that spew forth fetid, acidic bile. The creature thrashes out with a multitude of ropey appendages, either sending attackers flying or picking them up to tear asunder or completely devour. Due to the creature's unstable nature, welts of pussing amber constantly break the surface, an obvious weakness in the creature. Bursting these pustules forces the god to ground, however, this does not leave it defenseless. The Black Goat is well known for her 1,000 young, which pour forth from her torn mass as she recuperates. This explains the source of the abominations encountered throughout Derceto and its surrounds, as the very earth and all entombed within was likely infected by the god's taint. The final records of the encounter describe how the creature was worn down with sustained gunfire, until finally the burning remains of Derceto collapsed, burying the creature in rubble. While little is known of what became of Miss Hartwood, Edward Carnby continued his profession as a private eye, and became renowned for specialising in peculiar and even supernatural cases. I just hope that whatever lays beneath the ruins of Dorsetto remains there undisturbed. But until next time, thank you for joining me, and I hope to see you again soon.